You have claimed that you oppose medical transitioning for these children, namely and specifically to what normally happens is puberty blockers, which you called it child abuse.
A damaging, irreversible procedure.
Damaging, okay. Ben, are your children circumcised? Did you circumcise your children?
Yes, I have two sons and they're both circumcised.
Why would you do that? Isn't that kind of hypocritical? Why is violating the bodily autonomy of an infant acceptable to you? And I can say, I'm a owner and I can tell you, there's sensitivity right there, Ben, that is removed.
You can be both circumcised and uncircumcised. You're going to have to choose. As far as the efficacy of a once it's circumcised, if you wish to get into the biology, I'm perfectly happy to just point at my 4 children. I've been fruitful and I've multiplied.
Feeling frustrated with cancel culture? Tired of walking on eggshells? You're not alone. Ben Shapiro's been there, and he's got something to say about it. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. In this video, we're diving into 5 times Shapiro said what many of us are thinking but are too afraid to say out loud. It's like he's reading your mind, only with more sass and statistics.
You are officially woke. That is what wokeness is about.
Here, I want to hear. No, it's okay. It's okay. I want to hear. Let's at least hear the argument.
It's like, people's grandparents or their great-grandparents were slaves.
That's okay. No, it's okay.
Fuck you, I'm talking!
Picture this. Ben Shapiro strolls into a college lecture hall and the place is buzzing. You've got students all fired up, ready to challenge him. And boy, do they get what they asked for. Some kid starts going on about how gender's just a social construct. You know the type. Probably has blue hair and a nose ring. But Ben's not buying it. He's heard this song and dance before. So Ben does what Ben does best. He hits him with a zinger. So if I decide I'm 60 years old right now, am I? He asks the student. Boom. Mic drop moment. The room goes so quiet you could hear a mouse fart. You can see the wheels turning in people's heads. They're thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense.
If the idea is that history has consequences, of course that's true. That's not wokeness.
Yeah.
That is not wokeness. Well,
I ran Elizabeth Warren's campaign. I helped organize her volunteers around here.
Wokeness suggests is that fundamental institutions in American society
are so... No, it doesn't.
Yes, it 100%
I ran...
does.
And that's exactly Ben's point. He's not just talking out of his hat here, he's got facts to back him up. Ben starts breaking it down. Biology isn't just some made-up thing, he says. It's real, and feelings don't change facts. He's not trying to be mean, he's just stating what should be obvious. Then he gets into the nitty-gritty. Chromosomes, hormones, all that sciencey stuff most of us slept through in high school. But when Ben explains it, it's like a light bulb goes off. People are actually listening.
I'm dumb, and I'm actually not dumb. I'm actually very intelligent. You don't have to be like smart in everything. Do you know why a gas light comes on in a car?
Okay. Sure, go ahead. Tell me.
It's because it's a lie.
The student tries to argue back, but Ben's on a roll. He's like a machine gun of logic, firing off facts faster than the kid can process them. If terms like man and woman can mean anything, don't they also mean nothing? Ben asks. Another zinger that leaves the crowd stumped. By the end of it, even some of the liberals in the crowd are nodding along. They might not admit it out loud, but you can see it on their faces. Ben's made them think, and that's what he's all about. Love him or hate him, you've got to admit, Ben Shapiro knows how to make a point. He's not afraid to ruffle some feathers, and in a world where everyone's walking on eggshells, that's pretty refreshing. Maybe next time someone starts spouting off about gender being a social construct, you'll have a few Ben-inspired comebacks up your sleeve. Just when you thought Ben couldn't get any more controversial, he decides to tackle systemic racism. But here's the kicker. He's not coming at it with feelings or opinions. Nope, he's bringing cold, hard stats to the table. And let me tell you, the numbers might surprise you.
I love that she's taking the word gaslighting and she thinks that refers to the light in your car when you're low on fuel. How a young woman gets married and her husband is attempting to drive her crazy, and so each night he turns down the light, which is powered by gas. It is a gas light.
Ben starts throwing out figures like he's at a math convention. He's got crime stats, graduation rates, you name it. And he's not pulling these numbers out of thin air. He's quoting real data that's got the crowd shifting in their seats. But of course, someone's got to challenge him. Some girl in the back starts yelling about white privilege. You can almost see Ben's eyes light up. He loves this stuff. He doesn't get mad or flustered. Nah, he just asks her one simple question. Name one law that describes discriminates against minorities. And you know what happens? Crickets. The whole room goes quiet.
That this administration shouldn't have the credence or the authority to make sure that people are protected.
So the Occupational Safety and Health Administration was set up by the OSHA Act. The OSHA Act was never held to apply to anything vaccine related. That there ought to be work mandates for vaccines, then you got to make that case to Congress, and then Congress ought to actually pass a law saying that sort of thing. They weren't going to do that until the Biden administration, which literally said it did not have the authority to do this under OSHA, then attempted to use OSHA to do it, and the court struck it down. That's what we're talking about here.
This should be within the branch itself, that have people that, again, allow that seamless
So you're in
transition
favor of a
regardless
fourth
who's
branch
there.
of government that was never contemplated by the founders?
It's not a fourth branch of government.
It is if they can't be fired by the executive.
Ben's not done though. He starts diving into the history of welfare and affirmative action. He's talking about how these programs were meant to help, but might be doing more harm than good. It's like he's peeling back layers of an onion, and some people in the crowd are starting to tear up, not from emotion, but because their minds are being blown. Now, Ben's not saying racism doesn't exist. He's not that naive, but he's questioning whether it's really systemic like everyone claims. He brings up this stat that'll make your head spin. 13% of the US population, which is Black Americans, is responsible for 50% of the murders in the country. He's using this to argue that maybe, just maybe, there's more to the story than just racism.
I obviously agree, and I personally have been targeted more than probably anyone else in America by alt-right anti-Semites, okay? Like, truly, by the statistics. The vastest proportion is inside the Democratic Party right now, which is why the Democratic Party seems unable to divide off from, say, Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib. Yeah. It's why they've had such trouble in simply declaring the obvious, which is that Hamas should surrender. It's as a conservative. Now, let me say that the vast disproportion of people who are anti-Semitic in America right now, unfortunately, I wish this were not true. I wish it were a non-bipartisan issue and there were no anti-Semitism.
The debate's getting heated. People are shouting. Tempers are flaring. But Ben, he's cool as a cucumber. He's like, wokeism suggests all inequalities today are attributable to not only historical injustices, but also continuing injustices in the now. But he's not buying it. He's questioning whether America is more racist now than it was in 1960. By the end of it all, Ben's got half the crowd questioning everything they thought they knew about race in America. Some people are nodding along, others look like they've seen a ghost. But one thing's for sure, nobody's walking out of there with the same views they came in with. And isn't that what a good debate is all about? So here's the deal with Ben Shapiro. He's not just flapping his gums for the sake of it. Nah, he's taking a sledgehammer to the whole foundation of woke culture. And you gotta admit, whether you love the guy or think he's full of it, he's got people's brains working overtime. That's what real debate's all about, right? Not just nodding along like a bunch of bobbleheads, but actually thinking about stuff. Shapiro's got this way of making you question things you thought were set in stone. It's like he's poking holes in all these woke talking points we hear day in, day out. Next time you hear someone spouting off about privilege or systemic whatever, maybe take a page out of Ben's book. Ask yourself, what would Ben say? Bet you'll start seeing things a little differently. And isn't that the whole point? To shake things up and get those brain cells firing?